Donald Duck's first movie was the animation of that familiar story of the mother hen feeding her little chicks. Are you familiar with the story? Mama hen's chicks are hungry, and Mama has some corn and some seed from the corn to plant. And so she goes around the community, and first she finds Peter Pig and asks, I can't even try and sing it, but maybe some of you can recall that it was, the whole thing was sung. But will you help me plant the corn? Will you help me plant the corn? And Peter Pig, who before that moment was dancing around with his accordion, having a great time, hears that there's some work to be done, and is suddenly, oh, I have a tummy ache. I have a tummy ache, and disappears, back behind his shed. And disappointed, Mama Hen carries on, and then gets to Donald Duck's place. This is the first showing of Donald Duck. Same ask, will you help me plant my corn? And Donald Duck also has a sore tummy and retreats back behind his house. And poor Mama Hen has to go away and do all the work herself, but engages the little chicks, and they plant the corn seeds. Well, the corn pops up, as it does magically in all cartoons, and then Mama goes around the community, and she first finds Peter Pig, who, again, seems to be doing well, says, who wants to help me harvest the corn? Harvest the corn. Once again, Peter Pig feels ill, and similarly, Donald Duck has a tummy ache and cannot help out. Like, who'd have thought that Donald Duck was so lazy? I always thought Donald Duck was just a go-getter, but no. So, poor Mother Hen, she and her chicks, they go away, and she's determined to make sure that they are fed, and she makes cornbread, and they're all ready to eat. And in a bit of revenge, she goes out and she offers a basket, a covered basket, what seems to be a meal, to Peter Pig and Donald Duck. And they're all excited because after all of their partying, they've got the munchies. They're kind of hungry. And they come and they pull off the little kerchief from the basket, expecting to find warm cornbread. And do you remember what they find? Just a bottle of castor oil for their sore tummies. What's the message behind this fable, this story? Anyone unwilling to work should not eat. That's the message that Walt Disney wanted to convey, and I'm sure that so many of your parents made sure that you saw that story also. Don't want anyone to be idle. Everyone needs to work. This is the line. Did you catch it when I was reading the scripture passage? I think I paused for a moment when we got to this point in the scripture passage on the line of anyone unwilling to work should not eat. Did you catch it? And if you did catch it, was there part of you that thought, oh, I wonder what that means? Especially for a church, because it kind of sounds harsh, doesn't it? Maybe you've heard people make this argument that we shouldn't be helping those who are poor or unfortunate. Get a job. Do something. Is that what's being talked about in the scripture passage? this morning? And maybe some of you saw that line, and in your head you're thinking, well, it's about time someone's reminded of that. I'm working so hard day in and day night. I'm paying taxes, and other people are taking my taxes for their own well-being while they sit around doing nothing. So, or maybe you had both thoughts in your mind. This has certainly been a passage that's been used religiously to make the case that we should not be giving charitably to the poor. And there are entire economic treatises that are saying that if you support the poor, you're just going to create more poverty. What a rabbit hole we could go down with that one, right? You know, where's Brad going to take this one? Well, here's where I'm going to take this one. You need to keep in mind that this is being written not about people who are poor. This is being written about people who go to church. There was this, here's the background. So Paul, or whoever wrote this letter to the church at Thessalonica, is hearing some rumors. Paul's not happy with the rumors that he's hearing. He's established this church and left them with some teachings, and he's getting word that there's some people who are not pulling their weight. Now, why is that happening? There was this belief in the early church that the end of the world was imminent, that God would be ending all of history sooner rather than later. And, I mean, be honest, if I told you that there was just 2 more weeks before the world ended, what would you do? Especially if you had just a 9-to-5 job that you hated. What would you be doing? Would you be still going to work? I mean, I would, of course. But you'd have this mass exodus from work. That's kind of the mood in the church. People were interpreting a particular teaching to say, the end is upon us, so why bother? Why bother doing any of the church work? And that led to just a set of people in the church who were just kind of, responding like Donald Duck and Peter Pig did to the mother hen. Oh, I got a tummy ache, or I don't feel well. I can't do any of the work that we have collectively. Put differently, why bother working on whatever the mission is of our congregation? It all doesn't matter. The end is upon us. And so Paul is saying, that's not the example that I gave to you. Don't you remember that when I first showed up here, preaching the gospel and establishing this congregation, I got myself a part-time job. Well, I got myself a full-time job. And I worked to earn my keep so that I was not a burden to you. That's the example that I set. And he's saying, do you remember that whenever I would send any of my evangelists to you, they followed my example? They showed up, and rather than saying, all right, I'm the preacher here, you guys feed me, they got themselves a job too, so that they were not a burden on you. That's the example that Paul is saying. Don't forget that. So follow that example, please, he's saying to the people who are being idle in Thessalonica. He's saying, there's work to do as the church, and we need to do it together. Don't be idle. It was a long time ago in a church far, far away. I remember once being approached by a parishioner, and he wasn't happy that we were doing some charitable work